It started in June. It was finally summer, and my parents had a trip to Washington planned. I'm Samara. I'm 16 years old and I'm an only child. I would be home alone for 2 weeks. I remember how excited I was. The house to myself, no schoolwork, I could do whatever I wanted. We lived on a large rural property on the edge of the town. The woods that I grew up stopped exploring right at our fence. It was peaceful and beautiful area. My friend and I had planned to camp out in the woods. The first night after my parents left, we set up camp, had a small campfire, had some food, and just had some fun time out there. Nothing was strange until that late night. Long after we had retired to our tents, I was trying to fall asleep when I heard some noises from outside. Some muffled cracklings, like tree branches breaking, and an almost static-like sound. It sounded distant enough that I wasn't really worried. Just curious. Was there someone else out there? Had a tree fallen? I couldn't tell. At one point, I thought I heard voices, but they were too far away to make anything out. After that, a group of hikers was making their way through and put it out of my mind. I fell asleep not long after that. The next morning, I asked my friend if he had heard anything. He assured me that he hadn't. Then, we hiked down to the creek and spent most of the day swimming in the breastwater. At one point, I noticed something. Across the creek and up the hill, there were 2 trees, bent and broken near the top. I wondered if they had made the cracking noises I heard last night, but why they snapped? I asked my friend what he thought, and he said they had probably broken in some storm or some road, which would be normal, except the bricks look fresh. Well, we are eating lunch. My friend told me that he had to go for a bit. His mom's only condition for him going on this camping trip was he had to come back for 1 day to celebrate his granny's birthday. It wasn't a long walk back to his house, and he promised me that by tomorrow. It seemed reasonable, but I was disappointed to be spending possibly the rest of the day by myself. It was 8 in the evening. I went to sleep early. That night, I was woken up to another scream. This sounded disturbingly close, and without my friend here, it was even scary. I hid inside my sleeping bag and listened. Nothing at first. Then there were loud cracking sounds, like something making its way through the trees. It passed by through the woods behind my tent. While I lay there, shaking, and the sound faded off into the distance. I don't know how long I laid awake, just listening, but at some point I must have fallen asleep. I woke up the next morning with sun heating up my tent. I couldn't wait for my friend to get back. Would he even believe me? But by the noon, he hadn't come back. I began to worry. I didn't really feel like spending another night here anyways. Maybe he felt like staying at home. I wasn't sure. I was definitely mad at him. I packed up camp and hauled everything back to my house on my own. At around 9 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Guessing it was my friend, I got up a bit grumpily and answered the door. But it wasn't my friend. It was his mom, and she looked furious. She demanded to know where he was, and that's when my stomach sank. I told her that he had left yesterday to celebrate his granny's birthday. Her face went pale. She told me that he hadn't come to home. That night she called the police, and by the next morning they had sent out a search party. That night they still hadn't found him. I sat in my room with my windows open. From the window I could see all the way to the mountains. The worry kept me up late into the night. That's when I heard it. A voice. Out of the trees. I listened hard. It was my friend's voice. I was sure, but I couldn't make out what he was saying. Was he calling for help? I grabbed my jacket and a flashlight. He must be out there, lost or hurt. I walked out into my backyard and listened. The night was dark and cold, clouds covered the moon. I hesitated. I had never been scared of the woods before, but I had a horrible feeling of dread. Then I heard my friend call for help, clearly from beyond the trees. I hurried forward and went out the gate into the forest. It was even darker beneath the trees. I listened and heard my friend's voice again, calling out. I shined my flashlight and followed his voice deeper into the woods. Then I heard him scream and scream again. In panic, I followed the sounds. I didn't know what was happening to him or what I could do about it. I had no plan, but there was no turning back. I felt like it was my fault. He was out there, and I couldn't just leave him. I kept moving forward. I noticed there was something strange about the screams, about the way he called for the help, but I couldn't put my finger on what was off. I didn't think too much about it. I had to hurry. I could barely see anything. I had only the light of my flashlight to guide me. Suddenly, the forest opened up, and I was at the edge of the creek. How did I get here so quickly? I listened to my friend and heard nothing. I called out him again, terrified that I was too late. My heart pounded in my ears. That's when it moved across the creek. In the trees, it was hard to make it out in the dark forest. I shined my light on it and screamed. It was as tall as any of the trees around it, skeletally thin, with arms that hung down past its knees. Its long, thin neck was like a pole, and on top of it there were two megaphone-like sirens. From those speakers, I heard my friend's voice call out my name. I realized suddenly what was wrong with the sound. It was broken, like a bad recording. I was frozen for a moment, unable to take off my eyes from the horrible monster. Then it played back my own scream and took a horrible step towards me. I turned and ran. It was hard running uphill through the bushes, only by the light of my flashlight. In my panic, I never looked behind me. I could hear it. It played a distorted siren sound as it crashed through the trees after me. I ran as fast as I could, lungs heavy. Never daring to stop. Somehow, I made it back to my house. I slammed my back door behind me. I couldn't run anymore. I was shaking so badly, lungs burned. I summoned the courage to look through my kitchen window out at the forest. There was no sign of it, no sound, no movement in the trees. I stayed there until the sun came up. Staring at the forest, I saw nothing or heard nothing. They never found him. Videos began to cropping up online, then stories and games. The creature was still out there inside.